You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
If you want to go on a wild goose chase, head to the tequila aisle and search for G4 tequila. You probably won't find it because G4 tends to sell out as soon as it arrives into Specs or any other liquor store. And of course G4 sells out. It's made by the legendary Felipe Camarena and his sons, Luis Felipe and Alan, who are the titular fourth generation that is G4. They cook ripe agaves in custom stone ovens and distill the fermented sugar-rich plants in copper stills. It's a difference you can smell, taste, and feel when you enjoy G4 tequilas. Or rather, it is what you can taste, smell, and feel if you can find G4. And if you can find it, grab it.
Hey, Gringx Chicagoans. I'm Linda from Cena Secreto. If you are in the neighborhood, you should look up Cena Secreto on Instagram. See if I'm hosting any dinners or tastings upcoming. Can't wait to see ya. Seyna Secreto. Secret with an O.
I have a road trip. I have a road trip.
I'm Luke Bank.
And I'm Linda Sullivan.
And this is Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed, award-winning podcast that helps Gringx bartenders
Understand agave spirits.
better understand. They already understand it.
That's great.
We're just
guys,
trying to help them
great
better.
job.
Yeah.
Better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico.
Cool. What's this episode about, Linda? Okay. So, in all of these consumer-focused tastings that I do, I often tell attendees that one of the big things I hope they walk away with is they can lead a more delicious life and support a more sustainable ecosystem if they start drinking more than just Blue Weber processed in Jalisco and Espadin processed in Oaxaca. Because, usually you just cut right in on these things. You're not.
I know. I was going to jump in on Oaxaca, but then I thought maybe you had more to say.
Well, I do always have more to say. So like I've been doing this right with the consumers, and I'm realizing, why do I never have this conversation with the Gringx bartenders that listen to
a totally different audience, but the same bits of conversation apply.
Well, even more so, right? So one of the things that I'll say in these tastings at the end of them, after everybody's tasted, I say, look, right now you're going to a bar and you're ordering a mezcal margarita and you're not paying any attention to what mezcal is put in there. And as a result, the mezcal is all Espadin from Oaxaca, and the tequila that's in there, if it's, the mezcal margarita that has both, and I'm just going to pretend it is for this, is always Blue Weber from Jalisco.
Yep.
Right.
Those are good odds. Take those odds to the casino.
Yeah. So I suggested to them that what they should do is show up. I continue to suggest many times.
Yeah.
That what they should do is show up to the bar and ask instead, hey, do you have, what kind of mezcal is it? Well, it's, and they'll say the brand name. And I tell them, I get the brand name, but like, is it Espadin from Oaxaca or is it something else? And when they go, it's Espadin from Oaxaca, what I ask them to do is, okay, cool. So what I want you to do then is go and ask that bartender, do you have anything else from anywhere else?
Yes. I love this. Oh gosh, I'm imagining myself as the recipient of that question too.
Yeah.
If I'm standing behind the bar, I would feel delighted to know that guest had such a takeaway from your tasting that they could use it as a tool to go out and ask that and advocate.
Right. Well, I don't even want them to talk about the tasting. I want them to, right? I want them to
they don't have to, but they had there was a changed something. They know a new bit now that they can go out and knowledge is power, kind of in that, angle. I love it.
Yeah, exactly that. And then what I tell them is, and the bartender will say, no. And then forget about it, because that bartender has to make 400 drinks that night. And so then the next time you go back, ask the same question, and they won't even realize you're the same person probably. And then you'll get the same answer, and you keep doing that. And eventually the bartender will then ask the beverage director, hey, can we get something besides Oaxaca and Espadin?
These folks keep asking me, folks.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And eventually I think that could have an impact.
I agree. I love that. And also I've seen it used as a tool, I guess, or a strategy from specific brands. When I've done education for different brands, I will tell folks right there at the retail store, oh, if Binny's doesn't have this, you can always ask. Or if a different small shop by your house doesn't have this, you can always ask. A certain number of questions is going to get to the person who makes that decision and say, some people are vocalizing this, so let's give it to them, right?
Right. But that's the consumer side. And no consumers listen to Agave Road Trip. It's only Gringx bartenders. So my thought is, how do we expand? And it literally, I don't even know the answer to this. You're way closer to being a bartender than I am because you've actually done it, right?
That's
you're not really doing it anymore on occasion for pop-ups, but you've done it. And so I'm wondering, what is the bartendery equivalent to that?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think of this not exclusively with agave, but just kind of in the concept of trying to get bartenders. And I will say too, just like industry folks, sometimes that will include servers, depending on how, intricate the system is, how much the servers might also know about the cocktails, et cetera. How to get them even excited about stuff.
Right.
And then you could zoom in on that and say that if there's excitement, they will probably follow that line a little bit. So this is a very specific suggestion, but one thing that I have found to be helpful is make it experiential. So if you've got, I'm going to come at this from the concept of training a bartender and server staff on a new cocktail list. You've got opportunities in Chicago to take them to,
Garfield Park Conservatory.
Oh, excellent. Yes.
Chicago Botanic Garden, where my friend Hector works.
Yes.
Okay.
As well as taking them to other bars where you think the bartending, the craft of the cocktail, the back bar selection is good, and enabling, and owners usually have some budget for this. This is going to vary across different restaurants and bars across the city, and the size of them and the size of the staff, blah, blah. But you can take them. You mean
how tall or short they are?
Exactly. That matters how much they're going to drink and eat. The height. Clock your height, please.
Yeah.
But as you're mentioning, the Garfield Park Conservatory is free to attend. So that's even another thought while we're talking about budget. But you take them somewhere, we've talked about a number of places that have a great back bar selection. And you say, everybody choose something different and let's just explore. If somebody is there, the buyer or the bartender, you can inquire, hey, how and why do you choose these things? Oh, we like to represent different states. Here's where we were able to get some juice from, this and that. So you kind of create a dialogue, and in that you create a memory for that group too. There's a lot to be said for the camaraderie between staff, and people who know a little bit more can lift up folks who don't. So that's one really specific thing I would say, that there is more opportunity to take your bar team to a meaningful experience. And by exciting them about that category, maybe you get a little bit more natural exploration, curiosity, sharing with their guests.
Yeah. So I love all of that, but I think maybe we're talking about two different issues.
Oh. What's the other one?
Well, so my thought is I feel like a beverage director or restaurant manager or bar manager or whatever that's doing that is already engaged in this concept, right? I'm thinking, if you're a bartender, how do you get your beverage director engaged in this?
Oh, so another question of arrow in the opposite direction.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the arrow's going from consumer to bartender with how you leave your tasting folks. And you're saying what I just shared is with a certain amount of authority. So the arrow is going from bar manager or owner down to the staff. And now here we are in the middle.
Yeah, more machete than arrow.
With just the Gringx bartender.
Just the only people who listen. So one thing that comes to my mind is if you are a bartender working at a restaurant or bar where the person making those ordering decisions doesn't care, you could literally just lie about your customers coming in. A bunch of people, I swear, a bunch of people were at one of Loop's tastings and they came in and said they wanted some Tempestate.
How many people? Like 1,000.
Easily.
Just really, if you're going to go for it, you got to go.
Yeah. But, I feel like that conversation, I feel like the crucial person in all of this, right, really is that person at the bar, that person who is the server, the person who is the interaction between the customer or the guest and the place that is making buying decisions.
Purchasing decisions on one hand, buying decisions on the other. Liaison is the Gringx bartender.
Yeah. Like, I feel like there's so much power there. And I feel like maybe they don't even understand how much power they have. Maybe. I don't know. When you were doing it, did you feel like you got the power?
Well, yes, but there was a great education
And don't sample
structure.
that song, Roy. We can't afford it. Sorry, keep going.
Copyright infringement. I think that's an easy one for me because I had great education support.
Oh, yeah. You were at Frontera. What am I, like, that's a whole different.
Great, access to the ear of all the folks who made the decisions.
Yeah.
That's such a small staff, though. On the fine dining side, there were only 6 or 8 servers total. And that, so when you have a staff of maybe 40, that's way different as to maybe how much feedback even that 1 or 2 general managers or assistant general managers or bar managers are even able to receive from you. Yeah. And I think it's hard to tiptoe in this conversation without noting a lot of people in those positions of leadership might also be tending bar, working X amount of shifts a week, which really limits. This has been a problem for a long time in the industry, not exclusively Chicago either, but that limits how much time they have to even, maybe they want to nerd out. Maybe a bartender would like to buy a book. I think that's I'm such a reader, so it's a suggestion that makes sense for me, but there are so many resources out there. If you're not getting that education from the restaurant or bar where you work, coming from the top, you could sort of educate up, you read a book, you're genuinely interested in it, you bring it in, you lend it to the bar manager, you just say,
maybe
hey,
with
I know
a
you don't
couple of
have a lot of time.
highlighters in there.
We'll post it, right?
Just read these 5 paragraphs. Yeah.
I think that if that's a genuine sharing of knowledge, and I love the excitement piece, whether folks are asking you or whether you heard out there in the world that maybe other restaurants have those selections and you also want to work with those bottles or a bigger scope of the category. I think that can be done really well without being kind of passive aggressive or strange. I think you can say, hey, I'm genuinely interested in this. Could we consider pulling a bottle, from a different state and representing it? That would be fun for me to sell. Yeah. I would really get excited about that. And you could even say, I'd be glad to teach the rest of the staff what I learned in this book. Yeah. Now you're getting into territory of not your role. Nobody's paying you for that education, blah, blah. But those are cool. There are avenues, I think.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also the opportunity, and I'm guessing everybody who works hospitality understands this, right? Because I think I worked a total of 8 days when I was in marketing at Rogue Ales, where I would, I think I told you this story before, where I would take on holidays because I'm godless. I would take, Christmas and Easter and holidays for people in the pubs and work those days.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved having the conversations with the customers, and always tried to influence, first, ask them what they liked, right? But always try to influence them to taste something that I really enjoy.
100%.
Yeah. So I'm guessing everybody understands that.
Well, it gives you a nice shared knowledge right there. If you love it and you're genuinely saying, hey, taste this, I love it, I know what you already ordered, maybe, then there's a shared thing there. You both had that experience and you can chat about it, whether you agree or don't agree. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And, in essence, what you're doing is sharing your love. But if you do it in the way that I'm suggesting with the different states and the different agaves, you can help preserve the thing that you love.
I think that is still undershared with folks. I think folks could make that decision and not really know how impactful that choice is for them. I would say most of the consumer facing folks that we talk to about something like huge percentage of the mezcal we're exposed to in the United States is Espadin from Oaxaca, blah, blah. And a lot of them go, oh, I didn't know that. What's an Espadin? They just so I still think we're like trying to Tobala, more emphasis on the wrong syllable. Yes. I wait my whole life to use that line as frequently as possible, which is like once a year. Hooray. So yeah, I think that can feel good to people too.
Yeah. Which also gets me thinking again about the episode. I don't know if I did it with you or with other people, but about flights
to Mexico.
No, about serving flights
of mezcal. Agave
Shad was in that one, and there was somebody else, and apologies, I don't remember who you were, not off the top of my head, but it'll be in the episode notes. But I think that that's an outstanding tool for bartenders who are trying to sell customers on trying something new. Here's try 3 something news.
Yep,
right?
I love that. Well, and it's kind of like the next step if that bartender is able to, air quotes, kind of convince the buyer, hey, give me 1 more bottle, give me 2 more bottles from a different place. Now I've got a little flight of 3. Yeah. And you start talking about that flight of 3. A lot of bars have regulars. They say, hey, we came in before. What was the spicy one of the 3 we tried?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was from Michoacan. Would you like to try that again? Yeah, that was my favorite. I've been thinking about it ever since, Yeah. So it takes those multiple touches too to then give that consumer the vocabulary. They trust that bartender. That's what is often so special about that liaison relationship.
Yeah.
The buyer is a nobody to them in some cases, right?
Sure.
And they trust their bartender.
Yep.
So for the bartender to kind of advocate like that for the clients, for the customers, that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, and that also brings my head back to the episode that I know you and I did, because you just reminded me of it a day or 2 ago, where we were talking about the 11 spirits that Agave Road Trip suggests you use for making cocktails, which were all not from Oaxaca, not Espadin.
Well, and it was in a response to an article that had suggested 6 or 8 or something.
Yeah.
Everyone maybe would be less one.
I think, less
Espadin
one.
from Oaxaca. And so we kind of went, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my point there is simply sometimes the pushback I hear is, well, we can't afford those carrying costs for those expensive bottles. And, when you look at, you look at our beloved Lucy Pistolas out of Guanajuato, you look at Burrito Fiestero, right? You've got your La Luna out of Michoacan, Burrito Fiestero out of Durango. I don't think I finished that thought.
But even in that example, La Luna comes in a liter. So there is, they see the people who are producing and they see, this is, we want this to become a little bartender's gem. We want the bartenders to talk about Cupriata. And I think there's also Manso Sawayo in that black label, La Luna. Nobody knows about Manso Sawayo.
In the 1 liter?
The one that's cocktail. It's real small underneath. They may have changed
ensemble,
it.
You're saying.
Technically, it's like 90% Cupriata, and then like 10 these other 2. I have 1 bottle at home that says it. They may have changed the label since, but then there's this little deep cut of like, wait a minute, there's another word I can't pronounce. Curiosity, question, new information.
Yeah. So
it's affordable. There are examples that are affordable.
Yeah, which also, then springs to mind this whole, you got to have flights, you got to have options, and the bartender who doesn't have that, the onus is kind of on them again to convince their beverage director, whoever's making buying decisions, if you want to keep having this beautiful spirit available. You got to do some work.
I mean, some of it, we've sort of already said this, but some of it is, can be anecdotal. The other thing, kind of tying back to the field trip idea, I was thinking today about how excited I have been about different producers and spirits and expressions that come out of various places in Mexico. And so many of them are tied to trips I have physically taken down there.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's any coincidence. I've talked with a couple different producers thinking about how can we bring bartenders down to Mexico to have a cocktail competition or something right here at the Palenque, right outside the Fabrica. That would be cool because again, that's experiential, but that is a perfect segue into that concept of biodiversity. You go down there, you might see something, taste something, smell something, hear something that kind of clicks that in for you. Oh, I didn't really realize when I was reading or listening to speakers what this sustainable sort of snowball is. But now I saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
I heard it described to me from the people who live there. Something just can kind of shift when that's the case. Yeah. And then it becomes a little more important. Okay, when I go back, I'm gonna talk about these ones that I learned about. I'm gonna talk about that thing they're doing with replanting the seeds. I'm gonna talk about that. That's cool.
Yeah. The hard part is finding the time and the money to do that, right?
Oh, yeah, you're not wrong.
It's illegal for brands to pay you to come down.
Right.
Once you're down there, they're allowed to take care of you, but it's hard to get that first nut covered. Which is shout out to the Tequila Interchange Project. I hear they're starting up again with those paid for trips that are not brand sponsored.
No, I saw that too. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that is great. So if you're interested in that, go look up Tequila Interchange Project.
Interchange Project.
We'll put a link. Yeah. Yeah. Do you got anything else for this, Laura? Laura. Did I just call you Laura?
Well, sometimes when I order my coffee and they ask what your name is, I say Lola.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that's what you were going for.
Sure. Anything else, Lola?
No, Mr. Barista Lou. Let's call that a wrap.
We'll call it a wrap. I'll catch you next episode.
Adios.
Hasta pronto. You've been listening to Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringx bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. We're blessed with sound engineering by Roy Sierra and a theme song performed by Gabriel Oliveira and Marco Ricos. Sign up to become a road tripper and listen to more episodes at agaveroadtrip.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let us know. And if you hated it, well, I'm sure you'll let us know that too. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Agave Road Trip. Agave Road Trip is a production of 10 Angry Pit Bulls, Inc. Agave Road Trip is powered by Simplecast. Thank you for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. To subscribe to the Heritage Radio newsletter, enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with Heritage Radio Network on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find Heritage Radio Network at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization using the power of educational storytelling about food to build a more equitable, resilient food system. Heritage Radio Network couldn't do that without support from listeners like you. Become a part of the world's most innovative community today. Subscribe to the shows you like. Tell your friends. And please join the Heritage Radio Network family by becoming a member. To become a member of the Heritage Radio Network, click on the beating heart of our homepage. Heritage Radio Network can become addictive. Programming you hear on Heritage Radio Network might lead you to eat, drink, and listen to more programming on Heritage Radio Network. If you drink, please do not drink and drive. Drink responsibly. Drive responsibly. Eat responsibly too. And listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly. To listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly, wear protective earbuds. While wearing protective earbuds, do not drive. Do not walk either. Sit in a comfortable chair. If that comfortable chair has a hard seat, please remember to stretch every 30 minutes. If you stretch every 30 minutes, please stay within your defined stressing capacity. And consult a doctor who specializes in stretching. If you don't have a doctor, maybe Dr. Ryan Acock, the Cocktail MD, can help you out. Thanks for listening. Agave Road Trip out.